Have you? Is speaking up is speaking up something that you struggle with sometimes as a woman in leadership? This situation happens a lot more than what people are willing to admit. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some very candid reasons why you may be struggling to speak up as a leader. Now, I want to preface this by saying that if you resonate with any of the insights that I share with you, that is okay. Knowing that you are struggling with something specifically is the best way for us to be able to tackle it and address it so that you don't struggle with this anymore. Now, this channel heavily focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies. If you are wanting to communicate more confidently and concisely in those very high pressure situations, maybe you're in a salary negotiation, maybe you are presenting in front of a board. Maybe you notice that sometimes you freeze when people ask you questions and you are required to think on your feet. This is the best channel on YouTube. And I do not say that because it is my channel. I say that because I am building the largest high stakes, high pressure communication library for leaders on planet Earth here on Excite Excellence Incorporated. You're going to learn a lot of information here. If you happen to be a woman in leadership, you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to. So feel free to reach out to me for an executive strategy session at exciteexcellence.org. Or if you are really serious, and I mean serious, about communicating at that higher level, maybe you are a woman that's in a senior level leadership role, maybe you're transitioning into entrepreneurship, anything you're trying to do to really elevate how you communicate in those very under pressure situations, then my high stakes communication intensive will completely change your life. Check it out at exciteexcellence.org. Now, the reason why a lot of people will tend to struggle with this topic in terms of speaking up goes into a lot of different scenarios. Now, whether you are a woman in leadership, or maybe you are a man in leadership, or you're thinking about leadership, people generally do struggle with this. And I want to know from you, have you ever struggled with speaking up as a leader? What was the situation and why was it a struggle? Put it in the comments below. One of the reasons why people tend to struggle with speaking up as a leader has a lot to do with the fact that they simply may be a bit more, I would say, confused in terms of what exactly they need to say when they speak up. Now, before I go into this, I want to say hello to those of you watching the live today. Feel free to let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. And have you ever struggled speaking up? Have you? If you have, let's have a candid conversation about it. Today, I'm going to give you some advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate under pressure. So the next time this happens, you don't necessarily feel so worried about speaking up. All right, let me go into the chat to see what is going on. So we have some offensive person that's saying racially offensive things about me, so they are going off the channel. I don't tolerate that nonsense here. We have Brielle Riley. Hello, Brielle. I hope I said your name correctly, and I have not seen that name spelled that way before. That is very nice. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you being here. And okay, we have the offensive person off the live. Now, many of you know, and I talk about this a lot on my channel. As the channel grows, so do the trolls. And you'll have people say really offensive things here on the channel. And I want to say I apologize because of course I don't want you all to be exposed to someone saying some very, very offensive words, specifically to me and my ethnicity. For those of you watching the replay, you do not see the words because you're not a part of the actual live. It only comes up in the chat. But sometimes people will say things like that. And when those situations come up, depending on the context of it, oh, I will continue to move on. So I want you all to know that when it comes down to high pressure communication and communicating in those very high stakes situations, this is what I do every single day. I do it here on YouTube. I've done it in my professional life for many years, for over the past 20 years as a C suite executive and a director. The way I communicate with you here is exactly the way I communicate when I have foolish nonsense trolls that say racially really inappropriate things to me. And I will not repeat the word because That's not what I'm here for. All right, Brielle says, "Yeah, you have," and says, "First person to say it correctly." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that is a very, very pretty name, by the way. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of times why people tend to struggle with speaking up as leaders, a lot of it can come down to multiple insights. And I'm just going to share a few with you today. One of them has to do with the fact that you simply may not know what to say. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you knew you needed to say something, but you just did not know how to say it and when to say it? We've all been there at some point in time. Now, just keep that in mind. You may not know what to say. And if you are struggling with that, this is something we can absolutely work on. Brielle says, "Me, yes, it happens quite a bit where we just don't know what to say. We have no idea what to say." Now, let me know where you all are joining from in the big, beautiful world today. And if you've ever struggled with speaking up. So, we talked about sometimes you don't know what to say. The reason why a lot of times we don't know what to say is because being in those situations where you have to speak up, there is typically some type of challenge, there's some type of hard conversation that you may be having with someone. And a lot of times, individuals, and we talked about this morning during our live, a lot of times people they somewhat shy away from conflict, believe it or not. Most people don't want to be in conflict, they don't want to deal with drama. There are people out there that thrive on that. That is for sure. But most of us don't do that. We don't really want to deal with a lot of drama. And if you have struggled with what to say in those situations, a lot of times it's going to come down to you knowing how you want to try to achieve the best outcome for this situation. Now, if you're new to my channel, I want to share with you I have a over 1,000 videos on my channel that focus directly on advanced communication skills and strategies, especially when you're in those very challenging under pressure situations. A couple videos that you may want to take a look at on my live tab, specifically if you're trying to develop your skills as someone that can communicate in those very high stakes, high pressure situations. One, well, I'm going to list a couple of videos, and you're welcome to take some time to look at those. And if you like the content, you're welcome to subscribe. Any video that talks about thinking on your feet, managing your emotions under pressure, maintaining eye contact, look out for my cowboy analogy as it relates to eye contact. Any video that talks about your tone of voice and being able to manage how you communicate will help you be able to address these issues when they come up. Therefore, the next time when you're in a situation where it's complicated and you just don't know what to say, you have to start developing a strategic way of you making decisions. Now, I do this a lot with my clients in a one-on-one setting. If you feel like you are overwhelmed, like it's just too much for you when you are in those high stakes situations, we have to help you define what is your decision making algorithm. How do you make decisions? How can you be strategic about your decisions? And that will actually help you to be able to start speaking up when those situations come up. Now, I'll give an example of this in just a moment, but I want to go into the chat first. Okay, Brielle says, "The way you say about standing up for myself and for other people helped me a lot to think, helped me a lot to understand it. Thank you." Absolutely, Brielle. You're so very welcome. I'm glad that is helpful to you, and I appreciate the heart emojis, friends. Okay, we have J4XLOV3R. Hello, welcome back, friend. Good to see you. And okay, J4X says, "Hi, I'm here. I lost my tooth." Oh my goodness. I hope you're doing all right, friend. I hope all is well for you, but good to see you again. Now, we talked about a lot of times people don't know what to say when they're in those very challenging situations. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Another reason why people struggle with speaking up, I somewhat alluded to it a moment ago, is the fact that you don't know what to say. But then the other part of it is you may not know how to process challenging situations or challenging information all at once. And that somewhat goes into what I mentioned to you earlier. You have to have a way to make decisions. And I'm going to give you a insight or something for you to think about as you are starting to make your own decision algorithm as to when you need to speak up and when you do not need to speak up. That will hopefully give you some insight and help you. Let me go back to the chat. J4X says, I missed you to be honest. Well, I'm glad that you're here. And J4X says, let's see, doing homework. I'm doing my homework, so I'll watch your live stream when I'm done. No problem. It's here. All of them are here. I've upload all of them to YouTube. So you do what you have to do in terms of your studies, and I will see you at the next live when you're available. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Now, let me give you a couple examples, couple things to think about. If you've ever struggled with speaking up as leader, and a lot of times this happens a lot with women in leadership, correct? A lot of times we're not sure of what we want to say because we don't want to be that person that comes across as being too aggressive or not nice and etc. But there's a couple of situations that universally, regardless if you're a woman in leadership, a man in leadership, you absolutely may want to seriously think about speaking up when these scenarios come up. And I'm going to give you those in just a moment. But let me say hello to Shelby Daly. Hello, Shelby. How are you doing today? Welcome, welcome to the live today. Let me know what part of Big Beautiful World you are joining from today. And have you ever struggled with speaking up as a leader? There are a couple scenarios where you absolutely really want to think twice and consider speaking up. If you are in a situation where something is going to cost you your sanity, meaning it's going to completely cause you to be in a very, very negative state, you need to speak up. You need to speak up and protect your sanity at all costs. If perhaps you're in a situation as a leader where you know that something is morally and ethically and professionally wrong, you need to speak up. If you're in a situation where your finances are being impacted in a very dramatic or negative way. Even as a leader, maybe there's something going on, you're not receiving the compensation you were supposed to receive, or whatever the case may be. You absolutely need to speak up in those situations. If there is a situation that happens and you know this is going to be detrimental, meaning that it's going to cause you a lot of issues, challenges, or maybe not you only. Perhaps it's going to cause the company to be in a downturn or cause some type of risk that could occur that could impact more people than just you. You absolutely need to say something. Those are just a couple scenarios that I share with you in terms of when you need to speak up and why people struggle to speak up. Sometimes people struggle to speak up, especially when it is a ethically or morally damaging situation that's going on, is because as I mentioned in the very beginning, people simply don't know what to say. They're not sure, well, how do I have this very, very hard conversation about something that I see that is an issue? And of course, if you're subscribed to my channel, you'll start learning a little bit more about in terms of how specifically that happens. But when you're in that moral and ethical or professional dilemma, the first question I want you to ask yourself, well, first you have to identify this is what it is. So that's the key. You have to identify what type of scenario is this? Is this morally, ethically, or professionally wrong? You have two options. Well, maybe three. Yes, no. And the only reason I say maybe is because you may not have all the information you need to make that informed decision. But it's either yes or it's either no. And if it's morally or ethically wrong or professionally wrong, and if it's a yes, we already covered that you need to speak up in those situations. If you're hesitant and you still feel that intuitive sense to say, oh, I don't know if I want to say anything, I'm not sure, think of it this way and ask yourself this question. And this is from an executive coaching standpoint. What will happen if you say nothing? Think about it. What will happen if you decide to say nothing about this ethical, moral, professional dilemma? Now, majority of the time, when you have a situation come up when you need to speak up and say something regarding this specifically, most of the time there is some type of consequence that will come up in those type of situations specifically. Now, I will tell you that most of the time when people struggle with this, they are really worried about rocking the boat and they're very, very afraid of retaliation, which you necessarily shouldn't be. But a lot of times that is the reality in different organizations and positions. Now, I want to know for you, have you ever been in a situation where something seemed morally, ethically, and professionally wrong? And what did you do? How did you manage that situation? I have been in several of those over the years, and I will tell you that every single time when I faced those type of dilemmas and I needed to speak up, I felt very good about speaking up. You do not want to be the person, as a leader specifically, especially as a woman in leadership, where you are living life with regrets. Because if something is morally and ethically wrong, you may say nothing about it. You may just say, okay, well, I don't want to talk about this now. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to have a lot of eyes on me and etc. I just started my new job or my new business or my new organization or whatever the case may be. You may say, I don't want to say anything right now. But guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to happen? Two things may happen, or three. One would be the sense of regret. You're going to feel as if I should have said something, and it is going to live in your mind rent free for a very long time. Because if you are subscribed to my channel and you are watching any of my content, I know that you are someone that really truly values leadership and some of the things I talk about, especially as it relates to ethical, moral, and professional dilemmas. You have a pretty good insight in terms of how to handle them. However, if you don't say anything about these situations, what will happen is you are going to regret not saying anything. Now, the other part of that is you may say nothing and nothing happens. That is a reality. I will not sit here and say that something's always going to happen if you don't say anything about an ethically, morally, or professionally challenged situation. Sometimes nothing will come out of it, but you still will always remember what you should have done. Now, the third scenario that could happen is that this situation, even though you may have decided to stay quiet about it initially and didn't say anything, it could come out in some other type of way. Now, a lot of times when you are looking at people online, and let me know if this has ever happened to you, where you've heard people talk about different types of situations happening, different types of scandals and things like that. Have you heard of those? You probably have. And a lot of times when those situations come up, the person that was involved should have said something. They should have spoke up about an issue that happened. They decided to say nothing. And then when the situation unfolds itself, which I will share with you a lot of times, those challenging situations that happen in the dark, so to speak, where people are just trying to cover up information, they typically will come out at some point in time. It may not come out the next day. It may not come out the next year. It may not come out the next 10 years or 20 years. But at some point in time, it will come out. And when it comes out, everybody that was involved that chose to not speak up with this was an ethical, moral, and professional dilemma that people should have spoke up about, they will be caught in the crossfire and they will be looked at as poor leaders because of that one mistake that they made. Now, I hope this gives you some insight to consider. And if you've ever been in those type of ethical, moral, professional dilemmas, I know what your thoughts are. And I understand why there is this decision that you have to make and you're not sure if you should say it or you shouldn't say it. But I want to share with you that if you know something is morally, ethically, and professionally wrong, you need to speak up. If you need some help determining how you want to say it and who you may need to approach, you are always more than welcome to reach out to me here on YouTube. You can send me a comment on any one of my videos or reach out to me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook sometimes, and I just started TikTok, but I spend most of my time here, of course, with my amazing audience on YouTube, and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well. Keep that in mind. If you know something is going on, don't be the person that regrets it. Please don't be the person that is silent because I am telling you, it will come back at some point in time. We see this every day around the world where there's these scandals that happen and people have been in very, 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 very awkward situations in the past and they chose not to say anything about it. And guess what happens? It all circles back around and when it does, it's going to be even worse than if you would have said something about it. So let me know if you all have been in those situations specifically. And let me know what happened in your situation when that happened. There's a lot that goes with it, a lot. So we talked about briefly why people struggle. And I talked a bit about why women sometimes struggle with speaking up because we don't want to appear as overly aggressive or hostile or frustrated or whatever. And the same thing can happen with men also. But of course, in this case, I'm referring to just collectively, this is something that can happen to all of us. But sometimes you just don't know what to say. Sometimes you may simply not not know how you want to handle a situation. You may be afraid to say something. You may not want to be in a situation where you are retaliated against. Those are reasons why sometimes people struggle with speaking up. So fear comes into play. Sometimes we are simply not confident in speaking up as leaders. There may be a topic, and let me know if there's any topics that resonate with you specifically about this, but there may be a topic specifically that we might be just a little bit not as confident on discussing in front of a group of people, and we simply decide that I would rather not be in this situation. I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep doing my work and doing etc. Have you ever been in a situation like that? Let me know in the comments below. But these are some candid reasons why people struggle with speaking up. So I've talked to you about, generally speaking, that are universal, whether you're a woman in leadership or a man in leadership, as to why sometimes people struggle with speaking up. Sometimes with women, when we speak up, there's a there's this process that we're thinking in our mind in terms of, well, what's going to happen if I say this? And sometimes that voice in our heads tends to be very loud, and sometimes we may not say anything. Another thing that I've seen that happens sometimes with women specifically, depending on the role that you've been in, you may have received some type of comment or statement or something along those lines that was made by someone else that reflected you as being a woman as being maybe somebody that doesn't need to say anything. There is a thought process, and it's not, I would say it's changed quite a bit, but many decades and decades ago, they a lot of people did not think that women had a place to say anything. They did not think that they had a voice to say anything. They didn't think they needed to vote, just like many other people. And even though we are many decades in time away from that specific time period, there are still some thoughts out there that women don't really need to say anything. And if you speak up as a woman, you're out of place. Well, of course, most of my audience does not agree with that, and I know that, but it's something to keep in mind that happens specifically with women as we are navigating sometimes our professional roles. Now, as I mentioned, this is not something that happens all the time, but it's something that does happen from time to time, depending on the role in the industry that you are in. Now, if you happen to be a woman and maybe you've been in the industry specifically where it is very heavily dominated by men, I'll give you some examples: construction, automotive. Healthcare has made a lot more of a transition to women now, so I can't say healthcare so much. But some of those other type of industries where it is mostly men or has been mostly men, you may see some different dynamics happen. There are always people that are going to be very supportive of you as a woman in leadership in anything that you do. Doesn't matter who they are, they're just supportive. They may be men that are supportive, women that are supportive. There are people that are just genuinely supportive. But you just have to always be mindful and read people. And I talk about this a lot on my channel. We had a really long conversation about this a day or so ago. Reading people is the best way for you to determine what someone may be thinking, even though they perhaps are not saying it out loud to you. Take a look at any of my videos that talk about reading people, but just know that situations will come up and you may be worried about speaking up for yourself or speaking up as a leader. And make sure you determine some of the scenarios I mentioned. Is it morally, ethically, or professionally wrong? Is it going to cost you money? Is it going to be a risk for yourself or for the organization, or a safety risk, or etc.? Or it may be a situation where it may financially really impact you or impact a lot of other people. You have to have a way to determine, is this situation at the point where I need to speak up. Because sometimes as leaders, we don't speak up. We are very strategic about when we speak and when we do not speak. And if we find that it's a situation that may not necessarily need to have a direct conversation with it immediately, we may wait. But there are times we need to speak up. And I'm hoping I gave you some insights today for you to think about when you may want to speak up when those situations come up. Now, if you are new to me, I go live here on YouTube at least 7 times a week, and I am really here to support you any way that I can. If you're one of my amazing subscribers, you already know I'm here for you, friend. And I would like to know if you have any questions for me specifically, or if there's any topics you want to learn a lot more about, you're welcome to put them on any of the comments on any of the videos. I do personally read my comments, and I'd be happy to give you some insight and help you any way that I can along your journey. Now, when you have these situations come up, I tend to deal with the more complex conversations and hard conversations. Therefore, just keep that in mind. I don't want you to feel as if, oh, this is really hard. I don't know what to do. You are more than welcome to either send me a comment or you can contact me directly via DM on any of the platforms I mentioned earlier that are linked in the description below. I'm here really to support you all as much as I can on your journey. Tomorrow is Friday, and Friday is going to be when we have a Q&A session with the audience. I will do a Q&A in the morning and a Q&A in the evening. And let me know what questions you have. I don't know the topic I'm going to be focusing in on tomorrow specifically, but it's Q&A. And if there's something that is coming up for you, or maybe there's a challenging conversation you had this week, or a challenging situation you're dealing with or have dealt with this week, then it's a great opportunity for you to come, debrief, and let's have a conversation. My lives in the morning tend to be a bit shorter, but in the evening, tomorrow evening, it will be much longer. And I'm here to have a conversation with you as long as we need to help you overcome some of those challenges that you're experiencing. Now, as I mentioned, if you're a woman in leadership, you're tired of being overlooked, you're tired of being interrupted and not being able to speak up for yourself, or maybe you're in a situation where you are the only woman or one of a few women, and you really are at the point where you know the way you communicated before you got into this role is not the way you can communicate moving forward. My high stakes communication intensive is made just for you. It is a transformative process where not only will you enhance how you communicate very, very quickly, but you will also go through pressure drills. And the pressure drill specifically is my way of preparing you to be under pressure. Many times you cannot learn how to be under pressure unless you either have went through those experiences yourself or you have somebody that is trained to help you understand and see how you feel with those experiences specifically. We go through pressure drills. I go through a detailed analysis in terms of how you communicate right now, what you can use as leverage, what are some areas of your communication that you may want to improve upon, and all of that. It is one of my most favorite services that I offer just because I know if you sign up for this and you are a woman in leadership and you invest in yourself, this is something that will set you up for this tremendous success in your career because most leaders know how to communicate, but they struggle with communicating when the conversation goes under pressure, as I say. And I don't want you to be that person. And if you really want more support, customized support, instead of me communicating with you via YouTube, then don't wait. The longer you wait, the longer life will pass you by. The longer you will feel as if you are not confident enough to achieve that big goal you have in your life. So contact me for a high stakes communication intensive. It will change your life. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Tomorrow's Q&A. So let me know what questions you have specifically, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.